All right, so
I have to give you a little bit of credit for this.
Yeah, we can overdub it later. Just
I
haven't had any crazy stories about. Oh wait, no, I do. I got robbed at gunpoint, mugged.
Checking for me, but I ain't checking for them. No.
sleazy real estate guys, but all right, so another episode of the EP podcast here. We have another home team today, back at Arthur's house with the one and only Arthur Hannig. Arthur, how are you doing this evening?
Great. How are you tonight?
Good. We had our first home team in probably 2.5 months last week. And was it last week?
It was last week.
Last week, and then we're following it up with another. Last week was heavily into politics. This one, we also have some politics in there, but we also got a little bit of mix of other things too, just so we mix it up a little bit and, not be yelling not yell at each other the entire time. All in good fun, though. All right, so let's start us off light here. Apparently, Boeing is exploring their selling their space business, with NASA. There are two of their spaceships, which are, I believe, it was the Starliner and the support of the International Space Station, right? Apparently, they've been together in business for, I want to say, nearly 50 years, if not more, since late 60s. And I imagine this has to do with all the faulty situations that Boeing has been having in the past year, including the Starliner that they sent out earlier, but then decided to only bring back a portion and leave those that were in it back there, which in result, NASA decided, to work with SpaceX versus Boeing instead of Boeing, which is kind of like, all right, it's like saying, all right, you messed this up, but you're not gonna be part of the solution here. We're gonna work with SpaceX. Which last week, one of the topics we were gonna cover was SpaceX catching a Starship, and we went into we did go into that, and went into how it's like a fraction of the cost to build one of their spaceships, which was that of NASA, which kind of almost solidifies SpaceX's market share, I would say, maybe even in the industry of, space travel. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Boeing has done airplanes for years, and that's been their core business. So they expanded into traveling the space, but it might just be better off that they go back and focus on their core business of airplanes, and they're having issues on that side too. So
yeah, I was gonna say, it feels like they could barely even do that. I mean, I decided to look up what the stock is at year to date, and it's looking to be 40% from $250 a share to $155 a share. So, I mean, I know they have a new CEO, and the CEO is the one that's looking into getting rid of this aspect of the company, which makes sense. It's like maybe they're spread too thin, which in a way messes up, their focus and how well they can do in that one particular space,
right,
which could be a challenge in itself. And then, I believe they had like a bunch of layoffs too in the past few years. So, I mean, Boeing isn't doing that well, but who knows? Do you think SpaceX is going to be able to capitalize this even further, especially if they deliver and get the people back home safely?
SpaceX could be a potential, but that can segue into another topic where that may not be a great idea.
Oh, okay. Why is that? Why is that?
Well, it's coming out that Elon Musk has been in regular communication with Vladimir Putin for the past couple of years.
Okay, and what are they talking about? Are they talking about sports? Are they talking about what do they got going on?
Well, they're touching on several topics, but the more concerning one is when Putin asked Musk not to activate his Starlight satellite system over Taiwan on the request of China.
So Russia asked Elon to not have Starlink satellites around China territory.
Taiwan.
Okay. Interesting. And why do you think that is?
I believe China's trying to bring Taiwan back under its fold.
Oh, right, because Taiwan is part of... we spoke about this before, about they're part of a group with the U.S. where they receive support from us, right? Taiwan? Because that's where a lot of the chips get manufactured, right?
They do.
Yeah. Okay. So they got some insider stuff going on that could be in the harm of the U.S.
It could be, and Musk is already receiving billions of dollars in government contracts for his SpaceX as it is.
Right.
So now he's taking money from America to build his product, but then he's also in communication with Vladimir Putin that America's in the process of trying to isolate and squeeze out, and now he's kind of going around and
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So what do you think Elon, as the owner of this company, should be doing? What do you think is his ethical duty in this situation?
his ethical duty would be if the United States is trying to cut ties with Russia, then he shouldn't be contacting the president of Russia.
Okay. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I get, I get having to put the business in the first of priorities as a business owner and, customers and all that, all stakeholders. But, at some point, politics do get involved. And especially in this day and age, with what's going on between the U.S. and Russia and China, it'd probably be wise to consider that through. What other thoughts did you have about that going on?
Well, it's interesting because in 2022, Elon was supporting Ukraine with letting them have access to the satellite. And then all of a sudden in 2023, he flipped positions and wouldn't share that information with Ukraine.
Wouldn't share what information?
The intel from the satellite.
Oh, they're not sharing it with Ukraine anymore?
He stopped.
Oh, right, because he's not a fan of what's his name?
The president of Ukraine.
Yeah. Zelensky. Yeah. Because he feels like Zelensky is the best work from home employee of all time, because he is able to just ask for more money, and then he gets it, like, at least in his point of view, and like just like a snap of a moment, it's just more billions get sent to them, which is, and has been an ongoing conversation in politics for like a while now. So it's looking good for SpaceX, but it's looking a little sketchy for Starlink, is what you're telling me.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, no, because that's the issue, is that Musk is getting money from the government for SpaceX, but at the same time he's talking to Putin. So no, that's not a good look. Period. Okay. And it's representative of all of his companies. It's him. So
what exactly is not a good look? Are you saying that? So are you questioning Elon's loyalty to the U.S.?
That would be the concern.
Why so?
Well, who else do you know that's having conversations with?
Every leading business has conversations with markets globally, like that does like business globally.
Right, but right now, the United States is cutting Russia out. Like, Russia's on the OFAC list, so we're not supposed to be doing business with them. So he's not doing business with them, but he's talking to them.
We're not doing, but we also have people in politics who are talking to him that are not doing business with him. And there's people in the U.S., there's businesses that are taking funding from Russia too. Like, there's this one guy, Tim Pool. He was actually there. We went to the PVD podcast in Fort Lauderdale live with Candace Owens and Chris Cuomo. He was also there. He has a thing called Timcast, right? Essentially what he does, he goes into politics and all that stuff. He does live coverages. And recently he shut down his live aspect of things, and now is going into pre-recorded, because one of the things that, he put it on media production about them not getting it right and still having faulty ends. But one of the things he was getting a lot of backlash on was he was receiving funding from Russia. Like, it's like they would like send him like, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that was like one of the backlash he was getting. So there's still people doing business with Russia. Now, whether they should be or not, that's a different story.
Well, when the whole thing started, the companies that were over in Russia that were American companies all started to close down and leave. So, I mean, that's, again, if the United States is trying to squeeze out Putin by cutting off economic ties, then this isn't a good look for Musk to be talking to.
Yeah.
And You know, when Putin's making a request on behalf of China,
Yeah.
it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I mean, there is something sketchy going on there, but I don't really know that it questions Elon's entirely, at least, loyalty to the U.S.
But as we all know, Trump seems to be a big fan of Putin, and now there's a connection between Musk and Trump.
But specifically, what with Putin?
I mean, he supports Putin in whatever he does.
I mean, entirely? That's not true. That's not true. This is where we're gonna get into it again. He has, the guy has been leading the country, his country, Russia. Every country should be their country first and foremost. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Sure.
Okay. What I've heard is that Trump admires Putin's affirmative. I think that's the word. It's like how firm of a person he is. Like he actually fits. Like you look at Putin and you see that this guy is a leader. Like at least from what it looks like from a visual perspective. And like also he's been leading Russia for how long now?
Longer than he should.
Which is it? Like how long? How long has Putin been leading Russia?
He was in charge of Russia, and then because of the political terms, he had stepped down and kind of had somebody else in place to kind of keep his seat warm for him so he could come back, and then he's back in place, and he's been there for a while. So I'm trying to understand how, you know.
So he was elected president of Russia March 26, 2000. So he has been president now for 24 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then reelected 2004, 2012, 2018, and 2024. Like, without, U.S. politics could get tangly enough as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows Russia's? But when you look at, let me tell you something. If Putin right now stepped into the room, what are you telling him? Are you shaking his hand? Are you looking the other way?
Well,
or what?
Putin steps into the room. If you don't agree with him, you seem to mysteriously disappear or have a mysterious death.
Now, do you think opposing countries? Do you view that as a bad thing, or a good thing when an opposing country looks at you that way? Do you think there should be some sort of fear that your opponents sometimes have of you, as in like not to mess with you, because otherwise what happen?
Well, they're claiming to be a free state when they're not.
Russia. I'm just saying though, because right now a lot of people are stepping on the U.S. They look at our household, the U.S. being our household, and we're going back and forth with each other. It's like people don't take us that serious, right? They see that we got a lot of foolish things happening, a lot of like whether it be from politics to family to economy, whatever it is, and then it causes other nations to be like, what the hell is going on with the U.S.? Like there's literally, so remember that poly market thing that we spoke about people going to the platform and trade on everything that's going on in the world? So foreigners are on their stuff like that, like on it, like just betting on whatever's going on with the U.S. And essentially is they're thinking that we don't have our shit together.
I would
so
agree with
what
them.
would you so exactly, so to that point is, would you rather the nation look like have some fear of you? Would you have someone like the nation have some fear of you, or of not your president, opposing nation, or see you as a joke?
I actually wouldn't want either.
If you had to do one or the other.
Well, neither is a good look.
But I'm just saying, in this world, the reality of it is, at least from what I've seen, is a nation takes over another. Historically speaking, is that not what has happened?
Historically, yes, but we've gotten away from. We should be away from that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We should just let the nations have their territory and run the countries the way they choose to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why we're going backwards and having making these land grabs.
And the other way I will put it is like I have friends who fight for a living, who are boxers, martial artists, you name it. These guys could kick some ass, especially the average Joe's ass.
Yep.
Right? We know they have that ability, and it instills I'm not going to mess with this guy fear in him. Right? It's not that he's going to do it or telling you he's going to do it. Matter of fact, those people will be the first to like not even make you feel that way. But because you know they could kick your ass, you wouldn't mess with them. So it almost like it's like an innate fear that you have of such scenario. Do you think that the U.S. has that right now?
Yes and no.
Okay, in what sense?
I mean, first of all, we are one of the superpowers and we have the nuclear weapons. So that does give us an edge.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, you know, our politicians have all, for the most part, they've all become a joke. I mean, they stand so adamantly that they are for or against something, and then very quickly they turn around and go, oh, I never said that. Even when we have clips of them saying it, like, well, that was taken out of context. Like there wasn't anything to take out of context. You were pretty adamant about your position. Now all of a sudden you've reversed. Like, what's going on there? Like, why don't you have any morals? Why don't you have? Why can't when you make a decision like this? Why are you flipping?
Accountability. Yeah. Accountability is lacking a lot in today's country. And like, for example, if someone from an opposing country hears you say that, they're like, damn, like, because, you know, like with family, my view on family is you don't talk smack about family outside of the family, right? Because in that they view as your family is weak.
Right.
But what you said right now, millions of people are feeling, millions of Americans are feeling that way about America right now. So imagine that word gets around through to opposing countries about, you know, about how our sentiment with the country right now, it's not a good look on us.
It's not
at all. And that's a big problem. And honestly, I don't care what political party you stand for or you back, whatever the case is. It's a bad look on everybody, But that's you know, in Russia, that's not happening.
No.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Now, I know Russia is probably an extreme example. Is maybe a better example El Salvador right now. El Salvador went from one of the most dangerous countries in the Western Hemisphere to one of the most safest countries in the Western Hemisphere. Drastically reduced their crime rate. And their president...
But when you lock up anybody that you even suspect of doing a crime, that would do that.
They're all going through their hearings. And the president got reelected.
But obviously, they're not innocent until proven guilty in that country.
They're all going through the hearings. I mean, do you really think...
They're all locked up right now.
They're not. Okay, so let's say... But look... What's the word I'm looking for here is tough measures call for tough instances call for tough choices or like tough choices to be made, right? They went from the most dangerous Western country in the Western Hemisphere to one of the most safest. They wanted to turn over quick. And they thought, you know, I saw a video of Bukele, and he said, that's the president. He said, we expected a 10% decrease in our GDP with all the investing we were going to do into the country in terms of safety and everything involved that he said. Because one of the examples that he made was it's like a cancer, right? You know, the cancer is, in order to cure that cancer, you have to go to chemo. You have to what's it called? Get all the bad blood cells, which is also going to risk some of the good blood cells. But that's the price you got to pay to, in hopes, on the other side of it, come around as cancer free, right? That was the price to pay. And then he also said, because the problem was a lot of what's it called, cartels, I want to say, cartels. And he said he put such a perspective on it. He said, well, these cartels, what they're doing, the ones that are in it, not the ones leading it, says what they're doing is like they have their own economy. You know, they go and rob a store to then do what? Feed their family. But what if we create a job that instead they could now use the resources from that job to then feed their family? And then what if we could do that to this level? And then now that's going to cure that problem. So, and then I go back to the point I said earlier is they had expected a 10% cutback on their GDP with this kind of commitment, financial commitment into their country. Their GDP actually rose 3% after they executed everything, and they're still doing it. So I think tough times call for tough measures and tough action. I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that maybe we should consider.
Well, I think what they did was too far to the extreme.
But we're talking about it was okay. So in retrospect, in hindsight, 2020, right?
Sure.
Look at where they are now.
I still think it was too far to the extreme.
That's your opinion. But he has the example, right? I encourage you to look more into Bukele. I really think I have yet to hear anything bad on him. I've done a little bit of research on the guy, and I have yet to hear any bad feedback from him, other than like what you said. Like that was the main one that I heard, was that they're putting a good amount of the population in jail that are that were part of the crime.
Suspected.
And that's fine. No, that's not fine. But I'm just saying, as long as you go through the legal system and then you come out innocent on the other side, then you're like, oh, at least that's what I've been hearing or seeing. But I think tough times call for tough measures. So I mean, who knows? Do you think we're going through tough times?
We're going through tough times, but we don't need to be locking up a chunk of the population.
No, I'm just but maybe some of like the illegal immigrants from like gangs and what's it called, cartels from like countries like Venezuela. I mean, Venezuela is not a friend. So I mean, like you said, not to that extent, but maybe focused.
I'd need to know more information on that because there's a lot of misinformation about how all of these horrible people are coming into the country, and when that turns out to be more of a minority, nobody wants to admit that.
All right, so moving on. So speaking of China and Russia and all the others, this broke out I think today, October 25th. Chinese hackers targeted phones of Trump, Vance, and Harris campaign. Apparently back then when there was a breach of all the big major phone companies, what was it? Verizon, was AT&T one of them? AT&T, they might have breached into some of officials, like official networks. And now they're saying that, that might have been part of it, and now it's posing more security risk, to the country, especially on an international level. So, and that's one of the things that's concerning about that is that at this point in time, there's a lot of publicity happening because of the campaign.
Yeah.
So it kind of exposes even more. It puts us in a position to be more exposed to more leaks in the operations per se.
Right, but I also find it interesting that it wasn't Kamala's phone that was one that was listed as being compromised, which is also good news because she is the current sitting vice president, and that would have been a much bigger problem.
Well, campaign though, right?
Well, campaign, but I mean, you have to look at it because they're saying it's specifically Trump and Vance, and then other people on their campaign, and then it's just people on Kamala's campaign. So this could have been a bigger issue had the vice president's phone actually been hacked.
I see what you mean. Okay. Well, hopefully it doesn't escalate. And if it does, hopefully we have a swift and prompt reaction to it. Okay, so moving on from, and that's fresh. That's a fresh story. It just came out. I don't know what's going to come out from it. We'll see. If more comes out, obviously we'll cover what we can with it. And what do you got going on in terms of, the polls? What's going on in the polls, Arthur?
Well, the polls in the country are, for the most part, leaning towards Kamala being ahead. New York Times has come out that it's deadlock at 48-48 between the two candidates, so they're not deciding on one way or the other. In general, most of the polls are putting Kamala in the lead. But it's ultimately coming down to the 7 battleground states. We have too close to call, but slightly leaning towards Harris in Pennsylvania, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And then too close to call, but Trump leading in North Carolina. And then the others that are too close to call, but look like Trump is getting a slight lead are Georgia and Arizona. So at the moment, taking these 7 states out of the equation, the polls are showing Harris with 226 of the 270 votes and Trump at 219 of the 270. So it looks like Harris has a slight lead from that standpoint. However, it's really going to come down to these 7 states and which side they fall.
Yeah, this is going to be neck and neck until the end.
And then I guess, as I said before, I don't see us getting an answer on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Hopefully we'll have an answer by the weekend.
I know that happened in the last presidential election, but is this like a regular thing? Has it always been this way?
It hasn't always been this way. The last time it went this way was Bush versus Gore in 2000. But good news is people are going out to the polls early and voting. Typical of early voters, it does seem to be more Democrats go out. So at the moment, based on that, Harris has the lead based on early polling, but historically, Democrats typically go out. But they have commented that there are more Republicans coming out for early voting than they have in the past. So it sounds like more people are going to come out and vote in general, but we're going to have to see what happens.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up a few polls here, see what I found. I was reading, the first one I found was the BBC, and then I realized it was the BBC. So I'm probably not going to rely on on a source that's not in our country to look that up. So I started looking at other ones like, let's see, the Washington Post. Because you said, what about Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania is too close to call, but just slightly leaning towards Harris at the moment.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand anything within 5% is within the margin of error, and all 7 of these are in the margin of error.
So like the information is going to be different all across.
It is.
Okay. That's fun. Okay. So who do you, now you're mentioning that Harris is leading. But I'll ask you the same question I asked you last week.
Well, based on this and the way on what Trump's what's leaning towards Trump and what's leaning towards Harris, based on this, it would put Harris as president.
So, and this, we didn't have this on the agenda, but it broke out, I believe, yesterday, if not today. I believe Trump went on the biggest podcast in the world today, Joe Rogan.
Okay.
And Kamala, while at first she was in conversations of doing the Joe Rogan podcast, she ultimately ended up declining doing it.
Okay.
My take on that is that I believe it hurt her. It's going to hurt her. The biggest platform in independent, sources, and let alone platform, I don't think you turn down that kind of opportunity to connect to those kind of voters, especially the Joe Rogan platform. It's he's came out and said in the past that he will not support Trump in any way possible in terms of like having him on the podcast. That his mind clearly changed on that. And then he said he was also open to having Kamala on the podcast, but ultimately she went with no.
Right, but inviting Trump and Harris both on the podcast, that's not supporting one or the other. He gave both an opportunity to join, and if one chose to decline, one chose to decline. Now, I can't speak to the reasons or the rationale behind it. I don't know if it's a timing thing. I don't know if strategically she thought that would hurt her more than help her.
Yeah, because she went on one of the biggest podcasts. She went on the Call Her Daddy podcast. And she went on there. If I had to speculate, if I'm being completely honest with you, the Joe Rogan podcast has been around since I think the early 2000s. He's been in the game for a long time, the video format, I believe. His whole thing was, I just want to, have my friends around, have conversations, shoot the shit, and then just talk about whatever he wants, And then now, 24 years later, he's getting hundreds of millions of deals from like Spotify and such. If I had to speculate, I think that Kamala ultimately decided not to do this because she thought it would hurt her. I don't think I've been very cautious of trying to be as balanced as possible and seeing how Kamala performs and Trump performs. And what I'm seeing is Kamala doesn't do well with randomly prompted questions, which is what majority of Joe Rogan is. It's not formal at all. Joe Rogan is one of those guys that could talk about everything. Now, to what depth is another question, but I feel like she wouldn't have performed as well in that scenario as she may have in what she did, like the Call Her Daddy podcast, which I imagine her detail probably told her, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that. I wouldn't be surprised if ultimately they didn't make it happen because Joe Rogan was not willing to not go into certain things. Joe Rogan has the I don't give a F attitude. It's my show. I do what I want. So I don't know if maybe there was behind the door clash there.
I mean, it's all speculation, but also in speculation is we're in the last 2 weeks of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
If she already has places that she really wants to target and plans on being there in person, it could also be a scheduling conflict because, again, you're in the last 2 weeks. So she would have to drop something to be able to make that happen. Maybe what she would have to drop wasn't.
Trump made it happen. Or at least they said that they were having them recording today. Trump also went on the PBD podcast. Trump also went on the Full Send podcast. Some of the bigger podcasts in the space. That's where media is moving. I think after this election, we're going to see a big shift on where candidates go. To voice to pitch, their candidacy. I think it's because it's the biggest platform. I think you make the time for it. It's one of those things. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. It could have been that, but I'm conspiring that it was more on the other side of what I initially said. That's just me, though. That's just me. Like if you were a running president and you wanted to communicate with as much people as possible, would you not want to go on the biggest podcast in the world? In the world.
It depends. It all comes down to strategy.
Huh? But even, if I'm the type of guy that if adversity...
But you also have to look at it. If she had to make a decision prior to Trump going on to the podcast, then the biggest question comes out. How does Trump do? Like, you're trying to anticipate. Is he going to do well? Is he not going to perform well? Is this going to look bad for him? And if he does okay and she goes on and she does okay, does one win over the other? Versus if he goes on and doesn't do well and she doesn't go on at all, so they have nothing to compare it to, that could be a positive to her. But if he goes on and just does a phenomenal job, then, that doesn't really look good on her. So, it's there are risks no matter what you decide to do.
Mm-hmm. So she was recently, what was that one interviewer with the white head, good looking guy, slim? Is his last name is Cooper?
Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper. He just recently had a town hall with her at Delco, and I heard she didn't perform well there.
That's what it sounds like, yes.
One of the questions I think I heard that was asked was about how specifically she was going to improve the economy. And then she got the $1 million question that everybody's, it's $1 million question, $1 question that everybody's been asking is, why haven't you been doing it already? Goes back to the vice president conversation. But, you start wondering, and she doesn't have a response to that to that rebut.
Why aren't you doing it already? Simple answer. She's the vice president.
As someone who she's doing it. She's doing it. She's running. Why can't she just say that? Why can't she just say, as vice president, here are my responsibilities, and this is why, you haven't seen my whole agenda transpire just yet.
When has a vice president ever come out and said, my job, there isn't a whole lot to it? No one wants to admit
why
that's
can
part
that,
of the
why
vice
can that be
presidency.
an education opportunity? Maybe the country is not as educated on what the vice president's ability, is or is not. Like, I've learned throughout this whole process that yes, they have the ability to, be the deciding vote between a 50-50 situation, and I forget what was the other one. Obviously in the case of the president not being fit to do whatever it is that he needs to do, but also it's such a simple description. Why not use it as an easy opportunity to just educate one, viewers, and two, potential voters?
I mean, historically, no vice president has ever come out to say that. So I guess the fear is the backlash of when people go, well, you're not qualified, because if all your job is to do is sit there and hope that your boss doesn't die, that's not really great qualifications.
So while we're on that topic, one of the short clips I uploaded on Instagram was about that conversation that we had about the VP, and I took a poll, right? Let me see if I'm able to answer the poll here. I'm able to see the poll here. I am not. So I'm not able to see the results of the poll here, unfortunately, on the desktop version. But here's some of the responses I gotten. That we have gotten. The VP is the president of the Senate. Someone commented they're also the president of the Senate, which basically means they get the tie, break, and vote if Bill 50-50 in the Senate, and basically some other limited powers in the Senate, which we have covered. And some people, because the question that was prompted to them, was, do you think Kamala Harris as vice president should be held responsible for not pushing through her proposed policies during her time in office? Or is it unfair to expect her to have more influence over the current administration agenda? That was a polling question. And then one guy said wrong on every count. And some guy said Kamala cast a bunch of tiebreaker votes in the Senate. Okay, she's doing her role there. And then someone said Biden admitted he delegated every foreign and domestic decision to Kamala. So this is a failure. This failure is wholly on her. Another comment is, her and Biden have said she's in the room making every important decision with Biden, so she has to bear responsibility for it. That's the risk you run when you put your name on something. So what are your thoughts on some of that feedback that we got from the audience?
Well, I love it when it's phrased, she's in the room with him.
I mean, Arthur, when you're in the room, it's not you're like in the corner just on your phone.
I understand.
You're actively engaging or listening.
But I mean, it's the same context of being a server at the country club and you're able to name drop and say, oh yeah, I just saw so-and-so at dinner. Not to mention that you were the person waiting on them at dinner, but you make it sound like that you were dining with them. I mean, similar thing. She was in the room. Great. I mean, that's what they keep saying. She was in the room. I mean, ultimately, the decision always is on the president. She can, if asked, she can give her opinion on it, but what her opinion is doesn't mean that it was followed.
So, I mean, some days I wake up, I know I'm doing a good job. This is how I know I'm doing a good job. As being in the middle is because I'm getting shit from the left and the right. That's how I know I'm doing a good job. So I'm happy to stay there. I was talking to somebody as to, they were telling me they're more right winged. They were talking about, how the Democrats are responsible for a lot of what, the country's current state is. And then, I was devil's advocate. I'm like, do you really believe that a whole population is to blame for the current state of a country? And he said yes. And I'm like, and then I asked him okay, well, I pushed back on his view as a Republican, and then eventually the conversation led to, you know, what's the role of an independent? The independent, he essentially summarized it to being a free thinker. So I posed him the question of, well, is that not what every citizen should aspire to be? A free thinker that makes a decision based on policies and of whoever's running for president versus rhetoric and, you know, bashing each other in. Ideally, yes. But does that happen? No.
Historically, it has.
How?
Look at when Reagan was running.
Mm-hmm. What about it?
The country went red.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Reagan ran again, the country went redder.
Okay.
So Democrats went across and voted Republican. Had no problem voting Republican.
Okay, I see what you mean. And this happened the other way around too.
Hasn't.
No?
Hasn't. And now, in a situation like this, where Republicans are starting to cross the line to say that they're supporting a Democrat, now they're being told, well, you're not really a Republican then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't say that to Democrats when they voted for Reagan. Other Democrats didn't come out saying you're not really a Democrat because you're voting for Reagan. It was a matter of, you know, looking for what was best for the country. And in that current situation, it was better to vote out the current president, who was a Democrat.
So Reagan was president what year?
He in 1980s when he became president.
Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing here 1980 was Reagan and Carter.
Yep. And
But-
people wanted Carter out. Democrats wanted Carter out.
Well, Carter got, you know, Minnesota and Georgia, West Virginia, and what appears to be, I don't even know, is that DC? I mean, not DC.
Can't be DC.
I know, stupid. So no, it is DC. No, wait,
It
look.
can't be.
Or it says Rhode Island, Maryland, and DC. This is what this is saying. Oh, no, this is breaking it down even further. Sorry. But that wasn't even a full red. I'm seeing here right now, the last time it was mostly the most red, what I'm seeing on this
84.
is 72. 72, Nixon got, so I'm trying to figure out this here. 520 Nixon, McGovern 17 from the votes, from the electoral votes. And I'm trying to see. Oh, at one point we had American Independent. You don't even see that now.
Yes, there.
1968. That's when my dad was born. So 1968. Right now, the most red I've seen it thus far in this map is 1972 when McGovern ran against Nixon, which had Nixon at 520 of the electoral votes and 17 of the votes to George McGovern.
Oh.
And then I'm trying to see. Oh, look at that. 1964, Johnson versus Goldwater. Johnson, Democrat, Goldwater, Republican. Johnson had 486 of the electoral votes, and Goldwater had 52. Let's see, what else?
But that was also right after Kennedy got assassinated.
Oh, right.
And Kennedy was a Democrat.
Shoot, look at this. Franklin Roosevelt.
That's
Shoot. Versus Alfred Landon. Which was in 1936. Electoral votes 523 and then 8. This was this a post World War I or II?
This was before World War II.
Before World War II, yeah.
But this was his second or third time running for president.
Oh, yeah, he got an even crazier lead the second time around than the first time around.
Because that was the second time.
1932 was 472 to 59 against Hoover.
But you have to remember, he was elected president 4 times.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because the rule wasn't, it was only a suggestion that you could only run for president twice.
Oh my God. That is right.
Then, while he was president, the Senate did pass that going forward, excluding the current president, no other person could run for more than 2 terms.
Now, how did he do that?
He just kept running.
And he kept winning.
Somebody else had also run 3 times after they won president twice, and they ran a 3rd time, but they didn't get it. So he wasn't the first one to break the mold and run for 3 terms. He's just the first one to get it. And then he ran again and won.
That is great. That is great. I love to see that. Oh, okay. A little bit of U.S. history there for you. Okay. So, votes, polls, you're saying polls are showing Kamala. I'm hearing the noise and hearing Trump. But we will see.
But as I told you, the flaw with the polls, and when the polls are looking at it based on the population, that's not the electoral
popular
college.
voting. Yeah, right. But the noise. Whether it be the media or whatever the case is, all that kind of stuff. The people. But okay, so that's where we're at with the polls, and then you covered. Let's see, you were saying something about Donald Trump's television ads. Tell me about that. You're going to tell me about how great Donald Trump's marketing with ads are. Is that what you're about to tell me?
I wish I could tell you that.
Okay. Talk to me.
This isn't a good look. If this is going to be indicative of what it's going to be like having him for president again, based on what he's doing with his ads, this isn't the look we want for the country. Talk to me.
What is this look that you speak of?
Let's see. Multiple Trump ads omit critical words from quotes about Vice President Kamala Harris on the subject of tax policy. So when you're going to quote somebody and you're going to take out some critical words, that's going to completely change the context of what's being said. One Trump ad misleadingly depicts comments about fracking. Another Trump ad takes an immigration-related quote from a 6-year-old news article way out of context. Another ad changes a word from the headline of an economic news story. Another ad wrongfully describes a quote. And then when Trump's campaign spokesperson was questioned about the ads, they chose not to defend any of the specifics of the ads. You're lying. The ads are flat out lying. That's not. I don't want a president to be going into office knowing that we're being lied to.
We'll see in a couple of weeks what the country decides, Arthur. We will see in a couple of weeks. When you have the script right in front of you, it's a lot easier. I will say that. And Trump is not.
And I'm not saying Kamala's ads are phenomenal and that there aren't ones out there that are negative towards Trump. But, when you see Trump's ads and they're almost always cringeworthy, like that's...
Really? Kamala and her word salad ads? Come on, man. She even someone, I forget it was, who was, what's the network that Cooper's in? Is it CNN?
Yeah, I think it's with CNN. Or MSNBC.
CNN. CNN. One guy said they called it a word salad city. She beats around the bush on a lot of questions, dude. It's great. It's like, when you're trying to reach a certain character, when you're writing an essay, like the professor says, it needs to be X amount of words long, and then you're done with it, but you haven't reached that character yet, and now you're like adding extra words to everything. It's how she comes on. And Arthur, this is not me. This is what what majority of the people I hear, read, talk to have been saying, including mainstream media. So, just the messenger here. Do you think she's clear and concise with all her messages?
No, I never said she was.
Okay, all right.
Never said she was.
So we agree on something.
We agree on a lot of things.
Okay. No, we definitely do. And just to be clear, guys, just to be super, super clear, this is the example that we should be setting. That, Arthur comes off as he's independent. We're both independent. He comes off as middle left, and I come off as middle right. Regardless of the case, we both come here and sit down and then we break bread afterwards. That is an exemplary citizen of the United States of America. United is not that we're going to agree on everything. United is that we can both come to the table, disagree on a couple of things, and still break bread afterwards and pursue something greater than ourselves. I believe that's what United is. Those who think that for in order to be united, you need to get yeses from everybody. That's not united. That's an echo chamber. You want to live in an echo chamber? You're always going to have yes men around you. You're never going to have anyone critiquing you to help you grow or anything like that. And there's just no growth. You're essentially building a comfort zone. And as we all know, comfort zones don't exist. I mean, growth doesn't exist in comfort zones. So I just want to make that very, very clear. Because social media is great at bashing people, and it's absolutely fine. It's a keyboard warrior's job. But as your friend and as a friend who we don't agree on a lot of things, I wanted to make that clear. Because right after this, we're gonna go grab dinner. So, you got us with anything else in terms of politics, Arthur?
Well, this one's an interesting one. We thought RFK Jr. was out of the picture, but doesn't quite seem to be yet. He is asking the Supreme Courts of Wisconsin and Michigan to pull his name from the ballot. However, in New York, he was challenging to keep his name on the ballot.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's sounding like he's already come out to support Trump. And now this is where he's trying to realize that he's going to hurt Trump in these battleground states. So he wants his name off. But in New York, he thinks he'd be helping Trump if his name was on. So I don't know how you go and argue about it's my constitutional right to have my name removed from the ballot over here. But over here, it's my constitutional right to keep my name on the ballot.
So you think RFK is picking and choosing?
I think he is. And this is becoming reminiscent of Kanye West in 2020 when he put his name on the ballot in several states, but not enough states to actually win.
I mean, I don't know that I would really put Kanye as a leading example.
Well, you have to remember
man.
Back in 2020 before all the controversy came out.
Oh, yeah, when he started coming out and saying all the things he said.
Correct. Before
when he was in the middle of doing public speaking and then starts breaking down in the middle of his with a bulletproof jacket on. You remember that? That's crazy, man. Pray for you.
But Kanye, all the political commentators were doing the math on it and said that Kanye putting his name on the ticket was going to pull votes away from Biden.
Yeah.
But Kanye was also actively supporting Trump.
Speaking of Kanye, Kanye has this piece in Frank Ocean's Boys Don't Cry magazine from many, many years ago. And he made a poem for McDonald's, right? I gotta look this up. And this is gonna be a perfect segue into our next thing. So I think they called it McDonald's Man. Let's see if I find it. Poem. So let's see. It's weird. So I'm only gonna read a little bit of it. Let's see. So this is Kanye West, McDonald's Man. And it goes like, McDonald's man, the French fries had a plan. The French fries had a plan. The salad bar and the ketchup made a band. Because the French fries had a plan. The French fries had a plan. McDonald's man, McDonald's. I know the French fries have a plan. The cheeseburger and the shakes formed a band to overthrow the French fries plan. I always knew them French fries was evil, man. Smelling all good and I don't trust no food that smells that good, man. I don't trust it. I just can't. McDonald's McDonald's damn. Them French fries look good, though. I know the Diet Coke was jealous of the fries. And I know the McNuggets was jealous of the fries. Even the McRib was jealous of the fries. I could see it through his artificial meat eyes. And he only be there some of the time. Everybody was jealous of them French fries. Except for that one special guy, that smooth apple pie. So that's Kanye and McDonald's, man. Now, I'll tell you who they're not jealous of.
Well, it doesn't sound like he was completely sober.
Well, I'll tell you who they're not jealous of, McDonald's, man, is the McDonald's quarter pounder. So, Arthur, I have very, very bad news. You know, there is an E. coli outbreak that first, was, very sad for me to hear, but
I'm sure it did. I mean, you bought your house based on proximity to McDonald's.
Look, I've always been within a mile radius of a McDonald's. And it's by accident. It's not by design. It just happened to be.
First place was just a couple of blocks away, so
yeah,
borderline crawling distance if need be.
So McDonald's food safety officials scrutinized onions. Let me try it again. McDonald's food safety officials scrutinized onions and E. coli outbreak. So there's been an outbreak, and it has been specifically surrounding the quarter pounder, but specifically the raw onions, sourced from a single supplier. They're, think it's going to be the main suspect of the contamination. So they've been removed from the McDonald's menu in affected areas and retrieved from the market by supplier Taylor Farms.
Well, that leads into some more questions. Why is it just the onions on the quarter pounder, or is the quarter pounder onions different than the other onions they use?
That made me think that too, which is
because does that mean that this food is pre-assembled elsewhere and really just like microwaved there?
I don't know. Maybe I should hit up Trump. He worked there for a little bit.
Trump did work there.
I was referring to his recent marketing thing.
Oh, it's because Kamala worked there.
McDonald's came out and they say they have no record of Kamala ever working at McDonald's. So
hold on.
I'm going to put that out there.
Hold on. McDonald's Corporation?
Okay.
Because doesn't McDonald's have like 1,000 franchises?
McDonald's in general. They pretty much said that. Okay. So, okay.
Correct.
What asterisk are you going to pull on me now?
No. If you work at a franchise of McDonald's, you're not working for McDonald's. Like all the McDonald's in this area are owned by one family. If you work at any of their McDonald's, you're not working for McDonald's. You're working for that family's corporation. And their name, say it's Ducart. Ducart Corporation owns the McDonald's here. So if you go and get a job at the McDonald's near your house, you're not working for McDonald's. You're working for Ducart Corporation. So if she worked in a franchise that was not owned by McDonald's, then that would be correct that she did not work for McDonald's. She worked at a McDonald's.
So here's Daily Mail here saying McDonald's claimed that they're missing Kamala Harris's employment record as staff are sworn to secrecy. So I don't know. Well, we got proof that Trump worked at McDonald's for a day, staged with a stage audience.
Worked implies he got paid.
Now, come on. He's working for the people. For the people. Even if it was a fake audience, man, they still got meals out of it, unless it was like fake bags in there. But anyways, back to the point. So very disheartened by this because the double quarter pounder large meal with the fries and then the Coke is always my go-to, when I go to McDonald's. So, and which resulted in almost a 10% drop when the news broke out. In the past few days, has been now an 8%. So we'll see where it goes. Hopefully, this isn't the last of the quarter pounder. Hopefully, no more cases arise. There's actually been one death and dozen of illnesses across 10 states. I didn't know about the death part, but I literally just had a quarter pounder less than a week ago. So,
were you in one of the affected areas?
I will say this: the quarter pounder with the bacon does not taste like a quarter pounder. It tastes like a fake Baconator from Wendy's. So, I don't know. And here's some information I found too.
So you're saying you like Wendy's better?
I'm saying Wendy's has a great Baconator. I mean, it's the Baconator. So previous incidents in the industry is that other restaurant chains like Chipotle and Wendy's have dealt with food safety issues in the past. Like, we heard about Chipotle, and so now McDonald's is facing a similar challenge. So we'll see how they handle this and come back from it. So, Arthur, we have reached the hour mark.
Okay.
There's obviously we always end up leaving this with a lot more stories to cover, but it's better to have more stories than not enough stories. But
well, let's end with a happy one. It's always better to leave on a happy note.
So the Happy Meal wasn't good enough?
Death dinner and death.
Well, that's a Happy Meal, not a quarter pound. You know what? Look, can I close this one out? You close the last one out with the Egypt Museum?
okay.
Okay, so let me close this one out because I this one was interesting to me. A woman made $67 million in 3 years on OnlyFans.
You would find that interesting.
So I'm always interested to see where the money flows in the economy. Okay, I'm interested in business. Is what I'm
How much
interested
time
in.
do you spend on OnlyFans?
So Karina Kampf, 28 years old, born December 1st, 95. You know, after 3 years of doing it, she says, I'm done. She says, no more link in bio, which if you had social media, you would know that when, people refer to link in bio for more, they're usually referring to some sort of exclusive content, typically adult rated. In her time doing what she does in social media in general, she has gained more than 7 million followers to her Instagram page. And in sales, when you think 7 million, what could potentially convert to, it's promising. Also a Fortnite gamer. She signed an exclusive streaming deal with Facebook Gaming in 2019 after previously streaming her content on Twitch. So she does a little bit of gaming on the side, or she did. But that made me curious of how is OnlyFans. The last conversation I had about OnlyFans was maybe like a year ago, but it was just random stuff. I was curious about how OnlyFans is performing as a business. Here's some stats here to hear out. In revenue in 2023, OnlyFans generated $6.63 billion in gross revenue, which was a record-breaking year. In March 2024. OnlyFans had approximately 44 million pieces of user-generated content. 44 million. Like, they created a piece of content and they uploaded it. And then number of creator accounts. In March 2024, OnlyFans received 197,504 requests to open creator accounts, with 32% of them being approved. That's like they have an automatic funnel already happening because, OnlyFans gets a kickback out of all of that money. And popularity-wise, OnlyFans is one of the most popular websites in the world, with over 316 million monthly visitors. More than 42% of the site's visitors are from the United States. So we make up a pretty good chunk of the OnlyFans economy. Arthur, if I didn't know any better, I'd say I'm in the wrong business. 28 years old, 67 million. It's almost like she should have waited a little longer to make it 69.
Well, you're probably also the wrong gender to be created.
I know. I don't think I'd be pulling 69. I'd be happy to pull $1 million, but I don't think I'm going to be changing my career to that anytime soon.
I mean, it is $1 million. You don't want to give it a try?
$1 million is $1 million, you're right. But I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, do I really want to put myself out there in the internet where things are going to live forever? Short answer to that is no, I'm good.
Can you wear a mask?
Huh?
Can you wear a mask?
I mean, there is people that, there is some people that apparently they say that pretend that they're a certain person and then they make money off of using fake pictures or whatever the case is. I don't know what OnlyFans vetting system or how they prevent those kind of things from happening, but I wouldn't be surprised. There's always a few bad apples.
Well, is it live or is it pre-recorded? Like, can you have AI?
I know live is, so they have what I've heard about the business model where the most money happens is in the instant messaging, where users could reach out to the creator and ask for a specific request, and in that is where the creator is able to always change the price on things, ask for more, ask for less, and I would imagine that's where a good amount of the money comes from, because otherwise you'll find that these creators, it's cheaper to subscribe to their OnlyFans than it is to have a Netflix subscription.
But based on that, isn't this something that's going to get wiped out with AI? Won't AI be able to replace that?
Well, look, as I said, almost 200,000 people try to open creator accounts. 32% of them, only were accepted. Now they have to have some sort of vetting system. So I imagine they got to have some sort of legal ID that they'll be able to cross-check whatever the case is. I'm sure they have a really complicated structure that will be able to
money
prevent
can't
that.
change hands without proving that you're a legitimate person and not some
Right. Right.
money
So
scams. I mean, you
I'm
have to
sure. I'm
provide
sure
enough
they.
documents there.
I'm sure they have it laid down. Whether or not there's leaking their operations, who knows? And if there is, it'll come out in the future. But yeah, that's OnlyFans. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean,
67 million. What's your price, Arthur?
well, you wouldn't go for $1 million, so
Well, would you do OnlyFans for 67 million if you knew you could do that in 3 years? That is the question. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't date somebody that did. I would not date an OnlyFans girl. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. And I'm just thinking, like, just in case I have in the past, but no, I haven't. But yeah, man, that's what's going on. Some say that the money's going to the wrong people, but who knows? Good for them. They're entrepreneurs in their own way. They have to file taxes. They got expenses. They have the accountants, so let them do their thing. All right. Well, Arthur, another episode of the EP Podcast, Home Team Edition. Once again, back into your house. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, and don't forget to to vote. Arthur, give them a quick pitch about voting there.
well, hopefully everyone's registered to vote at this point. Most states you're not able to, but everybody who is registered to vote needs to go out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, you have the ability to go vote.
All right. And while you're at it, while you're voting, as I had earlier in our conversation, that I don't care what party you're in, we're all under the party of America. And as such, America starts with us. We announced this merch last week. We want to see you wear it. We want to know that you support America, but also the EP Podcast. This allows us to continue making this content for you and improving it over time. This is the White Patriot tee. This is the White Patriot hat. Arthur's wearing the Black Patriot hat. We also have the Better Together mug, all available in the link in our platforms. Get them while you can, man. Get them while you can.
Flip the mug around. They didn't see the Better Together side.
Well, EP Podcast here and then the Better Together side. And hey, if you don't want to talk politics, you don't want to wear politics in your shirt, because I know I have some friends that are fans of one party and the other that then won't wear a specific shirt out in public. Go shop our classic collection. We have a classic collection out there, and that includes of shirts, hats, and even a quarter zip. But go out there and vote. Support the podcast. Subscribe, share it with your friends. Arthur, thanks again. Until next time.